Thank you so much for joining us at this week's WCQR's Good News. I'm sitting down with Joel. He is the pastor of Real Life Church in Bristol, and they are doing this campaign called Until Love Runs This Town. And it's amazing. So let's go ahead and jump right into this interview now.
Hey, Christian, thank you so much for giving me this opportunity to talk about our campaign Until Love Runs This Town. As you said, my name is Joel. I'm married to a beautiful wife, Angie. We've been married for coming up on 18 years. It's the most successful thing I've done, is staying married. I don't know if she would say that, but we planted a church a couple of years ago in Bristol, Tennessee, which is my hometown. I never thought that I would plant a church in my hometown. But after many years of struggling and battling with God, I spent the majority of my adult life in ministry as a worship pastor. And then finally, God just broke my heart for really the church and people that were like me. I was kind of like the left out. I was always the last kid picked, even as an adult in ministry. I was always like the last guy picked. And I thought, I'm going to start a church for all the last people, for all the fat people. Let's be honest, okay? You know? And so anyway, we started our church. It's been an amazing ride, and God took us in this direction a couple of months ago, started kind of building this angst inside of us, like something needs to change in the culture and in the world today. And it just really set us up for hashtag Until Love Runs This Town.
That's awesome, Joel. Actually, go ahead and explain what is hashtag Until Love Runs This Town.
So it's a campaign that we started at Real Life Church a couple of months ago, before the tragic murder of George Floyd took place, and we saw this just split right down the middle of our country again. We were working on a series that we were just going to do a series of messages called Until Jesus Runs This Town. But as we were praying through, what this series was going to be about and how we were going to go about it, I began to really focus on the fact that I have a heart for evangelism and a gift for evangelism. And as I started thinking about my gifting, I was like, now, wait a minute, people in the church, like people that are already coming to Real Life Church and even at other churches, could totally get behind Until Jesus Runs This Town. But what about the local bar owner? What about the local restaurant owner who maybe doesn't know Jesus yet, or they've had a really bad experience with some of Jesus's people? Like, come on, we've all had a bad experience, right? And I started thinking, well, they're not going to get behind Until Jesus Runs This Town. So I started to ask God, how can we interchange the name Jesus with something that not only the church can get behind, but that local restaurateurs and business owners could get behind? And then I realized the Bible tells us God is love. And I was like, wait a minute, God is love. So how about hashtag Until Love Runs This Town? And I thought church people can get behind that because they know that you can put Jesus right here. And then people who don't yet know Jesus, they are not going to argue with love.
So for hashtag Until Love Runs This Town, what are some practical ways for the community to come around that and really love on their town?
So we have these little cards. We've printed up these little cards that say Until Love Runs This Town. Flip it over. It says 3 things will last forever: faith, hope, and love, but the greatest of these is love. Below that, it says love, pay it forward. So for us, what we're doing with those cards is every time we do what we're calling a love tap, we're handing someone a couple of these cards that has an action item on the back of it encouraging them to pay this love forward. So for me, I've done things like bought gas. So this couple pulls up beside me at the gas pump, and I'm filling up my car, and they're in a Range Rover, so I know this ain't going to be a $20 fill up, right? And I feel like God's saying, hey, go get them. And I'm like, really, God? Like, that could cost more than my fill up, And so the guy gets out of the car, he runs into the building, and I'm like, you know what? He's probably in there paying for gas. I probably shouldn't do it, but God just wouldn't leave me alone. So I said, all right, God, I'll do it. So I walked over to the lady and I said, hey, I'm not trying to be weird, but I'd really like to pay for y'all's gas. And she's like, okay, why? And I'm like, well, because I'm part of this campaign. And I kind of explain it to her and I hand her a couple of cards. So I start filling up, swipe my card, start filling up her tank. And I go back and I start talking to her. And she's like, man, this is awesome. But she kept looking back at the pump. And she goes, that's gone past 20. I was like, yeah, I know. And I'm cringing on the inside too, like, oh my gosh. And I said, hey, I'm just gonna, I said, I talked to her a little bit. Her husband came out, talked to him, told him what we were doing. They wound up asking why. I told them we're a church. And then I said, okay, guys, well, I'm going to get out of here. But let that fill up and I'll see y'all later. So, eventually I got back in the car and it said, $80 or something like that. I was like, oh my gosh. So I called my wife right away to tell her, hey, if you need to transfer some money, you should do it. I've walked into restaurants. I've paid for I walked into a Pizza Plus and paid for everybody that was in there eating lunch that day. Now, I knew it was Pizza Plus, so I knew we were talking about like top meal, $12 a person, hopefully. Honestly, that only cost me, to pay for everybody's lunch that day, it cost me like $150, which, that's a lot of money to me. That's a lot of money to me. But when you're talking about spreading the love of Jesus, I'm sacrificing. This is my offering. I'm giving above and beyond. And so I'm encouraging our church to do similar things, maybe pay for somebody's groceries. I'm a Lyft and Uber driver, so also I'm turning off my app. When they get in my car, I go, hey, this is going to be a free ride. And then I explain to them why, and, so they don't like weird out on me or anything. So it's just little ways and practical ways like that to care for people, especially in such a polarized time where love is not really being displayed. Like all over the internet, all over the news, we're seeing Christians argue. Some people are completely down with hashtag Make America Great Again, and then you got hashtag Black Lives Matter, and you've got Christians on both sides bickering and fighting. And so something we've been saying here at Real Life Church is love doesn't take sides, love takes over. So we're plowing a new path. We're not going to subscribe to Make America Great Again. We're not going to subscribe to the organization of Black Lives Matter because of some of the things that they actually believe. So we're plowing a new path. Jesus doesn't take sides. Jesus takes over.
That's awesome. I love that. So what are some, you said you give free rides, you pay for meals. What are some of the reactions that you are getting?
So some of the reactions, the lady that I paid for her and her husband's gas, which was the first love tap that I did personally, they literally got on Facebook the very next day, tagged our church, and talked about how I met your pastor. Here's what he did for me. They just couldn't believe it. The reaction was just so overwhelming. And then they were friends with some of our church members, so they started talking, you got to come check it out. And so the reaction has just been shock and awe, really. At Pizza Plus, I didn't realize they had a policy. If you pay for somebody's meal, they have to tell the person who paid for it. So all these people start coming up to my table thanking me for doing, and I didn't want that. I wanted it to be anonymous. I didn't realize. So it's been pretty amazing to see people's reaction to something as simple as buying a meal for them.
So what would you say to other churches or organizations that maybe want to join you in this campaign?
Well, once we rolled it out and we started seeing the reactions from our own congregation, from the love taps that we were giving and the stories we were getting back, we started realizing this is going to be bigger than us. And the WCYB picked it up and found out that we were giving away ice cream. We were going to do every Sunday in July. We were going to go out into neighborhoods around our church and give away free ice cream. We only did it one Sunday because then the uptick of COVID cases started happening. So now we've got it set up in our parking lot just with big gigantic signs that say free ice cream here. We're not expecting people to come in church. We're just giving them ice cream and sending them on their way. But we are going to get back to going through the neighborhoods and giving away ice cream. We're even talking about doing this into December and doing Christmas cookies. So just walking around doing Christmas carols and giving away Christmas cookies. So, I mean, we got some crazy ideas that it's not really about what we're giving them. It's about that contact, you know? And so as we started printing up things and printing these T-shirts, we realized, okay, this could be bigger. And man, I kind of had a dream one night and thought, what if one day we get on social media and we see, like a Instagram post of a T-shirt that says "Until Love Runs Cape Town." Like we're in South Africa now, right? So we want to encourage churches to get involved, to be a part of this. And in fact, a pastor has already reached out to me and said, "Hey, I'm in a church in Pennsylvania. We heard about this through radio." Uh, and we'd like to be a part of it. So I've told them we'll send them all of our files so that they don't have to recreate it. We'll send them the T-shirt files, the card files. I'm actually getting ready to send their staff a box of T-shirts and cards and everything just so they can see it. And we would love, like, there's no trademark on love, right? Because one of my members said, "Are we going to trademark this?" I'm like, "No, this is love. You can't trademark that." But I would just encourage you, sit down and think about what are some needs in your community. One of the needs in our community is, even though we are socially connected like never, like social media has connected us like never before, it's disconnected us like never before. One of the first times we went through our neighborhoods knocking on doors, inviting them to a cookout, the people didn't want us to leave their homes. Like I had told my people, don't infringe on their privacy, don't walk in their house, just hand them the card and get out of there. They didn't want us to do that. They wanted us to stay. And I realized, wow, man, people are lonely. We may be connected like never before, but we're actually disconnected. And so the ice cream is just a way to get to them. You know what I mean? And then we build that relationship. So sit down with your teams, with your staff, with your church members, and say, what are some practical ways that we can meet the needs of loneliness in our community?
Wow. So a pastor from, did you say Pennsylvania?
Pennsylvania, yeah.
Wow, that's amazing. To already see the impact that it's potentially going to have in another state now. So you're giving away all this stuff for free. You're sending, any church or organization that wants to be a part of this can. Where can they contact you to get that? What would be the best way?
So you can message us directly from our Facebook page, which is Real Life Bristol. If you type in Real Life Bristol in the finder of Facebook, you'll find us. You can contact us directly through our website, which is reallifebristol.com. You can basically that's probably the two best ways. I'll give you my email. It's joel@reallifebristol.com. You can contact me that way, but you can get a hold of us through Facebook, website, probably the best ways to do it. He heard about it on the radio, was driving through Bristol, and must have just started searching for real life churches in Bristol, Tennessee, and messaged us straight through our Facebook page right after he had heard the spot on the radio. So it was really neat how people can easily get a hold of you if they want to.
So we're coming off this season at WCQR, a season of prayer where we are surrounding schools in prayer because some of them are virtual still, some of them are in person, and there's so much difficulty and there's so much power in prayer. But I would love to know what you would love to see in the schools as far as, until love runs this town. What about, until love runs this school? What would you love to see to for or practical ways that the parents and that our community can really pour love into the schools?
Right. So, our school systems are so very important because our kids' minds and hearts are spending a lot of time in these school systems. And, we won't get into the whole separation of religion and all that kind of government and religion and all that kind of stuff. But the fact is, our kids are being, their hearts and minds are being developed at these places. And I know there's a lot of godly people in these schools. There's a lot of godly Christians and principals, especially in our area. And so, what I would love to see is love in a practical way, just being shared at the schools. Hey, how about be patient with each other? If there's any kids listening right now, be patient with your teachers. Be patient with your office staff because we're in just really crazy times right now. Hey, parents, be patient with your kids. Be patient with the teachers of your kids. I grew up with some family members that thought every teacher was out to get my cousin. Like, oh, they all hate him. No, no, they don't. He just might be difficult. you know. So everybody's not out to get you. Let's just slow down. That's the biggest thing, and that's what this pandemic has really shown me. We need to slow down. We need to take our time and just um, be human with each other and stop running everywhere at a light speed. I mean, we were going everywhere so fast. We were doing everything at such a light speed. Let's just slow down. Let's be patient with each other. Let's be kind with each other. When school starts back, I am a huge believer in the underdog. And so, what I was always encouraged by my youth minister was when you see a kid alone in the cafeteria, go after that kid. Don't let anyone sit alone. Yeah, you might get made fun of. Yeah, you might have to, sacrifice your social status, but you never know who you're sitting with or what you might be changing in that person's life just by giving them some love and care and attention. And so we believe that in our church. Whenever I see people come into our church, especially brand new people or people that have been coming for a couple of weeks, but they're still new, if they're sitting alone, I always go to somebody I can trust and I say, can you go get them? And just those little touches make such a huge difference in somebody's life.
I love that. I love how there is so much power in the little things. A lot of times, I mean, personally too, I struggle with this. It's like if I don't, if it's not big enough, it's not making a big difference. Why am I going to do something small? I want to make a bigger difference. I want to make a bigger impact. Paying for someone's meal that's not a big deal. But there is so much power in that little thing, and we don't know what's going on in their life right now. I mean, just imagining a kid sitting by themselves and what they're going through, the emotional state that they're in, we don't know that. And something as small as another child going up to them, just saying, "Hey, how you doing? Can I sit here?"
Well, that can cripple you. It has crippled me as a leader, as a lead pastor and a leader of our organization. There are times where I feel like we've got to come up with something big. It's got to be big. It's got to be huge, and you wind up not doing anything because you maybe you don't have the resources, maybe you don't have the people to do this big thing, and you miss what God's wanting to do in the small things that can turn big. Like, hey, we're a church we're not even 3 years old yet. We run about 120 to 150 people on Sunday mornings. We are not a big church. We are not a big organization. We have hardly any resources. But look how God has taken this thing. Now, this thing could have flopped. Nobody could have picked it up. Nobody could be talking about it. The church could have not got behind it. But we took this little thing, like we're calling it a campaign, but it was some t-shirts and some cards. A campaign isn't a campaign until it turns into something, right? And I was telling people about this the other day. In the secular world, in marketing of the secular world, you're looking for lightning strike, right? And in our sense, we're looking to get on God's timing, to get into God's wave. And I think this was brought to our hearts at such a timely um, manner. And lightning has struck this thing. And our marketing isn't just for money. The marketing that the church does isn't just about bigger salaries, more work, and more people. It's about changing lives. And it is about more. It is about numbers because heaven and hell, they're real and people are going there every day. And so it's time for us to be unapologetically saying, hey, our church, we're about numbers. We're about how many people can we get from going to hell to heaven. That's the numbers we care about. And don't be crippled by the small things because something small can turn into something huge if God, gets in it and ordains it. And so I think that's what we're seeing with this, with all the, had a pastor call me the other day and say, "Hey man, how are you getting all this media?" He's like, "We can't even pay for the attention you guys are getting right now." And I said, "Dude, we haven't asked for any of it. We haven't asked for any of it." And he said, "God's favor is on you right now." And he said, "Y'all ride that wave, strike while the iron's hot. And so we're just riding this wave going, "God, do whatever you want with this."
Is there anything else you would like to share?
So, listen, we were really excited when WCQR decided to pick up our campaign and talk about it. And our media guy reached out to CQR just to say thank you, because I didn't actually get to hear it. I started getting phone calls. WCQR is talking about our campaign, and somebody recorded it for me. And so he just sent a thank you for doing this. And then they reached out to us and said, "We'd like to do this interview that we're doing." And one of the things that excites me about that is I believe there are people who are just like me that are sitting in a church, or maybe they're not in church at all, but they love God and they feel like they don't fit in anywhere, and they feel like that they're not seeing what God's put in their heart and in their mind anywhere. But they're listening to CQR because of the music and because of the inspiration and because of the encouragement that you get. I want them to know that there's a place for them to jump in on this campaign. Like, you don't have to go to Real Life Church to get some cards from us. I've got people contacting us that don't go to church that want the t-shirts. We've hand delivered some of them. We've mailed some of them. If you want to come to church, great. We'd love to have you. We'd love to activate people that are out there inactive right now. But you can do these things on your own. You can wear the shirt. The shirt alone gets comments. It gets looks. I was at a restaurant the other day, and a lady goes, "Hey, I saw you guys on the news. That's really cool what you're doing. I love this love thing," she said. And so if you want to be a part of what we're doing, either at Real Life Church or just this campaign, reach out to us. We'll get you the resources, and man, we'll watch God just take this thing and go wild with it. What's incredible is we started with 20 people in a coffee house. We moved with 40 people to a movie theater, and 2 years later, we've purchased a city block of property to be a place where we're going to see our community changed. It, we believe our property is His. Had a woman, so talking about Until Love Runs This Town, I had a woman who's our neighbor come to us and said, this was last year, she said, "It's 100% chance of rain tomorrow. I had a birthday party with 30 kids invited. I've got a bounce house coming. There's no way I can do it in my house. My house is not big enough." She said, "Can I rent your gymnasium?" And I said, "Well, why don't you meet me and the children's director over there tomorrow and let's talk about it." So we bring her in, we show her around, and she goes, "So can I rent this?" And I said, "No, ma'am, I'm sorry. You cannot rent this from us." And I saw her countenance just drop. And I said, "We're going to give it to you." She said, "What?" I said, "We exist for you. God gave us this property to give back to our community." So she was just blown away. Couldn't believe it, because she had asked to use the parking lot back when it was a different church years ago, and they told her no, she couldn't even use the parking lot. And here we are going, "Everything we have is yours." And so we've been doing this love campaign the whole time. We just didn't articulate it into what it is until now.
Thank you so much for listening to this week's Good News episode. If you are listening to this right now, we are actually on YouTube, so you can watch this same interview. You can subscribe to our YouTube channel at WCQR FM, and we will see you next week.